Good evening, all, and welcome again to another exciting show of Share Your Story, brought to you by Palmdale Vision Center here in Nassau, Bahamas. This is October, Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and this is the month where we pink it up because we have to celebrate so many of our women and some men who are in the fight for breast cancer here in the Bahamas. And believe me, it's a tough fight for a lot of women. As we look around our family of islands, some of our major islands where we tend to see a lot of breast cancer includes Freeport, New Providence, Andros, and Eleuthera. And then we're hearing the numbers increasing slowly in a lot of the other islands. So we want this evening to share and talk about breast cancer. And so we have invited a few ladies in the showroom this evening who will be coming in a bit to share their story. In particular, we have a very exciting show for you because we have two special guests from Freeport. One of our guests in particular, she will come in and I'll introduce her. She was on the show 1 year previously talking about her journey. And so much has transpired since then. And so we're going to bring her back in to share, and she's going to tell us a bit of what's happening and going on in her life at this particular point in time. As I said, this show is brought to you by Palmdale Vision Center here in Nassau, Bahamas. And this is October, and so we want you to pink it up wherever you are. Tomorrow at work, we expect you to wear your pink in support of breast cancer or do something. And so I'm going to start right now, and I'm going to remove our banner so you can see what I look like. Hi to our listening audience. And I'm going to first welcome this particular lady into the room this evening. Yes, I can't bring. Well, we'll have to bring them all on. We have three other ladies, and so we will have to show everybody this evening at the same time. We have Jessica Butler, who's from Freeport. We have Charmaine Johnson, who's from Freeport. And we have Nakia Lotmore, who is from Nassau, New Providence. Good evening, ladies.
Good evening.
Good
And I want to say
Dr.
welcome
Abby.
again to share your story. It's so exciting to have all of you on and to be able to talk about what's happening in your lives. And I'm going to bring Jessica in because Jessica was one of our guests, very special guest last year. Jessica is from Freeport. And Jessica was diagnosed about what, 3 years ago, Jessica?
Yes, 2018, stage 2.
Yes, stage 2. And since then, so much has transpired in Jessica's life. And so we're going to start with Jessica. And we're going to help her as she helped us to share what's basically happening. So Jessica, welcome. And you can be the first one to start and to let us know. Just give the audience
Thank
a
you so
brief
much.
background again so they could know who you are and know what you're involved with at this point in time.
Okay. My name is Jessica Butler. Like Dr. Abby said, I am from Freeport, Grand Bahama. And my journey with breast cancer started in August of 2018 when my husband and I found a lump while I was performing a self exam. By September 2018, when performing the exam, we noticed that it had increased in size. It had doubled in size, basically. Feeling a little bit apprehensive, I went and I did a mammogram and was advised that an ultrasound needed to be done. Because of the reading of the ultrasound, I was advised that a biopsy was needed. So I flew into the US to have the biopsy done in January of 2019. And the results came back that I was triple positive. I needed 6 rounds of chemotherapy
Now, when you say
before having both
triple
of my breast removed.
positive, triple
Mhm.
positive, Jessica, is that
Estrogen
positive
positive,
or negative? Triple
estrogen
positive.
positive,
Estrogen
I'm sorry,
positive. Okay. Estrogen
estrogen
positive.
positive, progesterone positive, and also H2 positive.
Okay. Okay. So
Right.
that for most people, it's more or less a good prognosis.
It is, yes. Well,
Yes,
yeah,
it's a
it
good
is.
prognosis.
It's a good prognosis. Treatment would have been it's supposed to be easier once you're triple positive. Um, in June of 2019, I completed my chemotherapy, and in August, I underwent the bilateral mastectomy. I was relieved. One second. I was relieved because now the healing process could begin. But unfortunately, in February of 2021, the breast cancer that was in remission returned, and it had metastasized to stage 4. So it had metastasized to my liver, lungs, and bone at that time in
Now, just
February.
just pause a second, Jessica, so our audience could kind of digest this because believe me,
Hmm.
this is heavy stuff.
Yes,
Jessica was received
stage
treatment,
2,
and
right?
then she went into remission as far as
Into
she knew,
remission,
stage 2.
right?
And then February of this year, Jessica found
February
out
of this
she's
year,
now
2021.
at stage 4. And stage 4
Stage,
meaning that it had metastasized, as she said, to all of these different parts. So, Jessica, continue,
correct,
please. Tell us what's happening.
correct. Okay. Like I said, it metastasized to the liver, brain, and bones. And I had to do a routine PET scan. So I did a PET scan in September of this year. And they saw cancer cells on my brain. So I had to do a CT,
Mm-hmm.
a brain CT on the brain. And the results came back that cancer cells were there now forming on my brain and it was aggressive. So at this point, right now, I'm doing 10 rounds of radiation. I did my sixth one today on the brain. I have no, I don't have any seizures. I don't have any headaches. So the doctors, they were kind of surprised that okay, all of this is going on your brain, but you're not having seizures, you're not having headaches, you're not having any of
Side
these
effects.
things, any of the side effects. The side effects that I am feeling now, though, is that I have issues with forming sentences due to the radiation. But this too shall pass. You know, I believe in God. He's Jehovah Rapha, my healer.
How is your family handling the situation, Jessica?
Well, I have a very good support team. I have a very good support team. From my kids to my parents to my husband. So I have a very good support team. They get kind of they're anxious because I'm here. And but everyone is okay.
Now, when I hear your story, it takes me back about 30 years ago. My mom went kind of the same scenario. And
Right.
I just happened to spend the last 6 months with her. I was still in university, and but communicating by the phone back then, it sounds like the same process. And because you're now doing radiation on your brain, and
Correct.
that is tough because
It
it
is.
kind of
It is.
damages the good and bad cells. So for
It
you to
does.
be able to process information, and I want the listening audience to know that this has been an effort for Jessica to be able to be on this evening because, as she said, a memory is a challenge. Now, for
It
those of us
is.
who went through chemotherapy, we know that memory is a challenge to begin with because a lot
In
of us
itself.
suffer from chemo brain. But after
Correct.
she has done chemotherapy, she's now doing radiation on her brain cells to be able to minimize the cancer cells and to help her to function. Jessica,
Mom.
what would you say to your listening audience at this point in time?
I would say to my listening audience to get tested. We, especially in Grand Bahama, we need to be tested. We're seeing cancer in such high rates right now, basically all over the Bahamas. All over Bahamas. Get your screening, do your mammograms, get your pap smears. It can save your life. It can save your life.
Okay, we will give you a break at this point in time so that you could relax and listen. And
Thank you.
as we continue on, we will bring you back in as you know.
Okay.
Sorry about that. Okay, I want to say welcome to Nakia. Nakia Lotmore. Please let the audience know who's Nakia Lotmore.
Good evening. My name is Nikia Lotmore. I'm a 6-year cancer survivor, stage 3 breast cancer. I'm a single mom of a 15-year-old. I'm a administrative assistant working at Detect Plant Services in Bahama.
Okay, now, Charmaine, tell us who you are.
Sure. My name is Shameen Johnson. I am in Freeport, Grand Bahama, a proud Grand Bahamian, and I am employed with the Grand Bahama Port Authority. And my process started 6 months ago with a mammogram, November 2020, and my process was truly fast and furious. On my 50th birthday, on the 25th of May, I had my left mastectomy, left breast was removed. I was officially diagnosed on the 5th of May, stage 2 ductal carcinoma, cancer of the breast.
Now, Nakia, how did you find out you had breast cancer?
Well, one night I was lying down in bed while my daughter was playing, and I just said, let me do a breast self examination. I did that, felt a lump in the right breast. So I was like, okay, that's strange. Felt the
You didn't
left
feel
one.
anything previous?
Actually, that was the first time I did a self examination. Never done it before.
What
I,
caused you to do that?
I just did it. I just lied there and I just say, let me just do it. And I did, felt the lump, didn't think anything of it. Did the other breast, didn't feel anything. I said, okay. Felt underneath my arm, felt a lump there also. Felt the other one, nothing was there. So I came into Nassau, I think it was like but a week later, told my mom, I said, Mommy, I have a lump underneath my arm. So she was like, so what are you going to do? So I was like, nothing. Following week, came back into Nassau, told her I felt a lump in my breast. So she looked at me, asked me the same question. So I was like, nothing.
Where were you living at that point?
At that point, I was living in Grand Bahama. I was in Freeport.
Okay. So
Yes.
we have 3
So
of
I
you
had
in
to
Grand
fly
Bahama.
back and forth for my treatments. Did that. So one day I just decided, no, I called one of my friends and I told her, I said, hey, Cher, I said, I feel a lump inside of my breast. So she was like, Kia, you need to go to the doctor. I hesitated, basically almost a year.
And why did you hesitate, Nakia?
I just didn't want, I was actually scared.
Afraid, the fear factor.
I was exactly.
That is so common among women.
Right. So I was like, I think I know what it is. I say, but I really don't want to hear the news because at that time, my daughter, she was only 9. And every time when you hear about cancer, you hear death. So I was like, oh my gosh. Anyway, so I did a annual. I said, let me make an appointment. And I did that. So the doctor, when he examined my breast, he was like, you need to do a biopsy. He said, but there is no surgeon that does it over here. You have to fly into Nassau. So he gave me Dr. Monroe's name. I went back to work, called, made an appointment, called my friend. So she was like, Kia, no, that's too long. So I was like, so what am I going to do? So I called back to my OBGYN doctor. I spoke with his nurse. So she was like, you know what? There's a surgeon that did mines. Call his office. Did that. Had an early appointment. So I had to flew back into Nassau. When he examined me, he was like, how long did you felt this lump? So I was like, little while. So he's like, so why did you do anything about it? I was like, I don't know. Did the biopsy, took it to the lab, took like about 2 weeks. The lab technician called me because I told her, I was like, Mom, when you get my results, please give me a call right away. When she did that, it was all over. I just was devastated. I cried. And I called my mom because she was in Nassau at the time. And I called her and I gave her the news. She broke down. But after when I cried that day, I said, you know what? I have to live for my daughter. I said, cancer will not beat me, but I will beat it. So said, so done.
So it's been how many years now?
6.
6 years. Okay. You'll get to treatment process. Shami, let me bring you in. And you said you had your left breast at the age of 50, which is kind of average age here for women with breast cancer between 35 and 55. But that 40 to 50 age category is a common time when we see a lot of women are being diagnosed. How did you handle being diagnosed? I mean,
honestly, because let me just give a backdrop. As Nakia alluded to, in Grand Bahama, there is a challenge with access to healthcare. And I am talking from a position of having insurance. And so because of the length of time it took to get a mammogram done, because I had an annual done in August, I couldn't get a mammogram scheduled until November.
And that's where in Freeport or
in Freeport? Yes. No, in Freeport. And notwithstanding, we know what happened in Grand Bahama and Abaco with Hurricane Dorian, but that just depressed a situation that was many years ahead of that. And so when I found out, I went to my care is being done at Cleveland Clinic. I went over for a biopsy. I flew in that Sunday with the expectation and a return ticket to come back to Freeport that Wednesday, because I knew it was a biopsy I didn't expect to hear. And I still wasn't thinking cancer. And, going through the rounds of tests, I remember Dr. Khan, who did the biopsy afterwards, she was like, Miss Johnson, how long are you in town for? And I was like, oh, I leave on Wednesday. And she said, well, we need you to stay a few more days. We want to do, a little more testing. And I was like, okay, no worries. And so when I found out that Friday, Dr. Margaret Thompson, who was my surgeon, and it was a surreal experience, conversation. Obviously, mentally, I was not prepared for it. So I equate finding out to an out-of-body experience, seriously, because she was talking to me and I was hearing blah, 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 blah. And I literally saw my body, because I didn't feel like she was meaning me. Surely it had to be, and there wasn't nobody else in there, me and her and the nurse. And I was like, she can't be talking to me kind of experience. And so it was disbelief. And it was like absolute shock. Like, this me, I eat right, I exercise, I do everything right. So how could this happen to me? And so I had to have a come to Jesus moment in more ways than one. And that is where, as all of us realize and can attest, where your faith is really put on trial. And I'll say that and leave it there.
Listening to both of you ladies, and even to Jessica, including myself, we never kind of expect these crossroads to happen, you know. 'Cause these are crossroads, really. Get to a road and you have to kind of maneuver. And as you said, and that's a very good, important point to bring up, because a lot of Bahamian women feel, well, okay, I'm eating, right? I'm exercising as you do. I do this, I do that. And is there any family history of cancer, as far as you know, Shami?
So another interesting fact with the genetic testing, because I'm a person, unlike, and Nakia, your story is so synonymous with so many women being afraid. I was afraid not to know. I need to know what's going on. And when we did genetic testing, it was discovered that the cancer gene came from my father's side of the family.
So you are BRCA positive?
I am.
Okay.
I am. My father he's deceased, obviously, but he was Guyanese. And so it was 9 brothers. And I'm in second generation, meaning a daughter, and I have another cousin. Out of all of the cousins, it's 2 of us that have the gene. She too was diagnosed at age 50. Thank God she's now 74 years old and living a productive and healthy retiree life in Canada. But that's how I found out.
Yeah, that BRCA gene is an interesting gene here in our country, but somehow, though, the majority of the women who are diagnosed here in the Bahamas are not BRCA positive. So you and I, we fall in that lower percentage category, and the only way you know is when you're tested.
Yes.
But in Nakia's case, any family history of breast cancer?
Well, yes. On my dad's side, yes, I know for sure 2 of my cousins, they have breast cancer, at least had. Andrea Sweeting, you know Andrea, yes. Yeah, her, and then one of my dad other cousins, she had breast cancer also. And then on my mom's side, we had like a few guys that had prostate and colon, but no one that I know of have breast. But it's so ironic, the BRCA testing came out negative for me.
Yep. So you find cancers in a lot of families,
Yes.
but they're testing negative for BRCA. Now, Nakia, what treatment process did you have to go through?
Well, I did the chemo.
How many rounds of chemo?
I did 16 rounds of chemo. At first, it started off every 3 weeks. I did that one every 3 weeks. And after my oncologist, she was not satisfied that with the lump. She said that it did not reduce to the size that she would like it to be, because after the 3rd round, I was supposed to do my surgery. So she called my surgeon and she spoke to him. She told him that no, Miss Lotmore sitting in the front of me, she just completed her 3rd round and I'm not satisfied. So she needs to do 12 more rounds. Wow. So the 12 rounds, I did that every week.
After your 3rd round, though, what was that like for you?
Well, actually, during my chemo, it was a smooth sailing process for me.
Wow.
Yes. Never was sick one day. Never. It was just, to me, I was fortunate, I should say, or I could say, because it was like a breeze for me. I didn't have any issues. Did my chemo, finish. If I finish 12 o'clock, time is 4 o'clock, I'm back on the flight into Grand Bahama, back to work the following day.
Wow. That's incredible. Incredible. And what about after chemo? What was the process?
After chemo, I did the surgery. I had a double mastectomy. That also was a breeze. No issues. And then after I did the surgery, I had 25 rounds of radiation. No issues. So I just thank God through all of this.
Now, listening to you, you are very rare, because the average person if they had to do that amount of rounds of chemotherapy, they'll tell you it was not easy peasy, as you were saying, because you suffer from the symptoms, nausea, all sorts of funny feelings, and then your fingers can turn black, your nails can turn black, your toes, your hair drop off. Did you lose your hair?
Well, what I did after the second round, I went to the barber and I had it shaved off.
So the hair probably did come off.
Yeah, it was started to. So I just said, you know what? Before it started to chungle, just let me go to the barber, and I just had it removed.
Okay. Now, Charmaine, let's backtrack a bit. You said after she spoke with you, and you were like, she can't be talking to me. Ain't no way. What happened after that?
I called my pastor as my support, and I have a team of beautiful friends. At the time, the first two that I called, they started crying, and I'm like, hey, you're supposed to be supporting me. I ended up trying to cheer them up, right? But I would say, and we all know about the power of prayer, because unlike all of you, I was very specific in my prayer request, and I enlisted all hands on deck, and I'm talking worldwide, globally, and said, listen, this is what I need you to agree with me in prayer on. And I've had a miracle in that I have not had radiation. I have not had traditional chemo. And today I share that I am cancer free, moving into having my breast reconstruction surgery, which is scheduled for the 25th of October. I am on tamoxifen, a drug that a lot of us are familiar with. As a result of the drug, and I'm still grateful because I have experienced some of the side effects, the hair loss. My hair started coming out, and this is like 3 months now. And
Since you started on tamoxifen.
yeah.
Okay.
And so the normal, your hair coming out in patches, if you comb it, and we know how that is. And so it got to the point where I just stopped combing my hair, because I'm like, if I touch it, it's falling out. And, at 2 weeks, 3 weeks now, I just said, let me just get rid of it. And I did what Nakia did, because I think it does so much. As women, especially Bahamian women, we pride ourselves on how we look, outward appearance, and it does something. Well, it did for me, almost like you've already lost a breast. Now you're losing your hair. Am I still a woman? And so, again, that Jessica mentioned that strong support system. We all know how important that is, and the acceptance of this is where I'm at, but this is not where I'm going to stay. This is not the end of it.
Now, let me ask you something, Charmaine. You opted, or they advised you to just remove one breast.
Yes.
Now, you being BRCA positive, I'm just curious, why were you not advised to have both removed?
In regard to insurance, they will not cover at the moment. There's nothing that shows up in the right breast, and insurance will not cover another mastectomy until I get to that point. Yeah.
Now, can you imagine if you're a listening audience and the insurance industry out there, instead of being proactive, these women have to wait until cancer actually shows up again in order for her to proceed to have the other one removed. And we know that when you are BRCA positive, that the cancer is only waiting to show itself again. So how do you handle this, though, Charmaine?
Again, my faith in God, my belief in standing on the word of God, because God has already showed up for me. I am literally a walking miracle, and that's all I can say when I say, God, this is what it is. You you brought me through Dorian. I ran for my life like so many other Grand Bahamians. If you did it for me back then, this is just another test that you will see me through. And so I have to align my mind with the word of God because that's all I have. I cannot focus on what I physically see, and I'm grateful for the doctors and what they physically say. But, when I had that conversation with my oncologist, because, they tell you, okay, well, based on what we've done and, the findings, this is your life expectancy. And that's the conversation we had. And she was saying that to me. And in my mind and in my head, all I was saying, whose report will you believe? Right? And so you have to come to grips with who will you believe? And I choose to stand and believe on the word of God. And that's just it. There's no gray area. It's black and white.
Nakia, how is your diet and lifestyle different now that you've gone through the experience and you're 6 years looking back?
Well, now I cut out the red meat from inception. I found out I do not use sugar. Juices, I do not drink. I make my own smoothies. And just recently, I cut out all the flour, the pastas, stuff like that. So now I just eat a bunch of fruits and vegetables and limit my amount of starch, rice, and stuff, because bread, I cut that out also.
What about exercise?
Exercise, I try. I tell you the truth, I do not exercise much. I do not. Yes, but I need to get that in. I need to, because I know my doctor told me, yes, you have to exercise at least half an hour a day. So I'm really bad with that. So that's something that I really, really need to work on.
Now, Shamin, because you didn't have to do chemotherapy or radiation, I am sure your diet plays a major role in all of this.
Yeah.
How has that been affected? How has that changed?
Sure. I have been pescatarian for at least 10 years. And it goes
Please explain to the audience what pescatarian means so they will know.
Fish. I eat fish. I don't eat any meat. And I've at least 10 years I've been on this road of choice. I grew up in a household where my dad, we grew a lot of fruit and vegetables. So that is a part of my daily diet. I drink alkaline water, as Nikki alluded to. I don't do juices or, on occasion I would take a break and do something. But for the most part, water. I exercise 5 days a week. Even now, I walk the beach. I walk the beach in the mornings. It's about 3 miles. It takes me about an hour, and I do that 5 days a week. And I do that so much more, the physical. But for me, it's the spiritual, the mental. That's my time to connect with God. And to see the beautiful sunrise. I say to people, they come to our country and they pay for this. And we have this for free. And it gives me such a greater appreciation of what it is that we really have here. And I try and take advantage of that as much as I can.
Now let's just switch a bit to Grand Bahama, because the three of you are from Grand Bahama. Starting with Nakia, as far as you know, what is the access for health care there for the women? Because it seemed like a lot of women are being diagnosed over there. We are not sure if it has to do with environmental changes that have taken place in that town over the years. It has always been a very high industrial area. A lot of the chemicals we don't know because we have not done any research. But every time we turn around, we hear of so many women being diagnosed in Freeport with breast cancer or some sort of cancer. Nakia, as far as you know, what has the healthcare system been like for you? Because this would have been 6 years ago, before COVID.
Well, the healthcare system for me, actually, to tell you the truth, I I'm not a doctor person, but from what I understand, it's
Were you
not.
able to have access to healthcare on a timely manner, in a timely fashion, or to be able to consult or have certain tests or things done in Grand Bahama? Let us know what's happening.
Well, yes, after my diagnosis, I did my mammogram because I was scheduled to do a mammogram. I was told to do a mammogram, so I did my mammogram in Grand Bahama, and I did my annual in Grand Bahama. But my biopsy and all of my other treatments, I did those in Nassau.
So you have to come to Nassau in order to be able to get those treatments.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And of course, chemo. Well, I heard Jessica talking about radiation. We'll bring her back in to talk a little bit about that. But you did most of your treatment in Nassau because I'm assuming at that point in time, 6 years ago, it was not available in Grand Bahama.
No. Yes, I did everything in Nassau. Surgery, radiation, chemo, everything I did in Nassau.
Now, Charmaine, you went to Cleveland Clinic. However, what sort of care were you able to get in Grand Bahama at that point in time? Because this is now COVID and Hurricane Dorian post.
Absolutely. Before I was able to get the type of treatment I'm getting right now because of where I'm employed, I did not have health insurance. And so I did have a mammogram done at Davy's house. That was in 2017. And at that time, I believe we were already stretched with resources, meaning machines as well as radiologists who are able to read, because I got my results back, and it was only because I knew the radiologist who alerted me that, and this is 2017, and she said, well, I don't believe she was supposed to tell me everything. She said, you need to follow up with your doctor because there's something there. But I was very dismissive because, again, I had no pain, I had no indication, even up to the diagnosis. I didn't have the traditional type of lump. When Dr. Thompson said to me, give me your hand, I need you to feel this because of where it was located, I had no clue. And so, going back to the resources or the lack thereof here in Grand Bahama, Dorian and COVID only exacerbated an issue that I believe has been in the making for a time way before, Dorian and COVID-19. We don't have enough of either, meaning resources, machines, as well as technicians to assist. And a lot of women, they get discouraged. Okay, I may feel something, but I can't get an appointment for a couple of weeks or whatever. Like I said, I had my annual exam in August with insurance. I was not able to get a mammogram done until November. And that is with my doctor and, agitating, and a girlfriend, agitating me to get on my doctors to be on, where the mammogram was done. So imagine somebody who you give up before you start.
And we are now in the pandemic. So that has placed a major, major strain on our healthcare system, not just in Grand Bahama, but here in New Providence. So can you imagine the kind of crisis we're in now with women who may be diagnosed, depending on where they are, and in particular, we have to think of the other family islands. At least Grand Bahama has some sort of healthcare system, but a lot of our major islands do not have the healthcare system in place. And so a lot of times these women may feel something or find something, but they're afraid to move. And then when you come into Nassau now, COVID testing and all the protocols involved, but still we have to take responsibility and be proactive as women though. We cannot just sit aside and say, oh, we don't have it. What are we going to do? We have to fight for our health. And it forces us to do what we need to do in order to ensure that we get the best possible care. Now, I want to bring Jessica back in a second because I want her to talk about radiation that she's receiving, and I'm assuming she's receiving this in Grand Bahama. So I wanted to just tell us a little bit about that, where she's having it done, because I'm happy to hear now that at least you can have radiation treatment done in Grand Bahama.
I'm actually having radiation in New Providence
Oh,
at the medical pavilion. Yes, so that's where I'm actually doing that right now.
so it's still not available in Grand Bahama. I mean, we're far from
No,
that,
I
not
was
even privately. And you
correct,
know,
correct.
what Bahamians don't realize is that the cost of healthcare is horrendous.
It
It's the
is
technology involved. And so when
even
you're
with
challenged,
insurance.
Yep.
yes, when you're challenged with these debilitating diseases, if you don't have health insurance or if you don't have the financial backing, it's difficult to be able to face the disease head on. Now, we have to
It
say
is.
kudos to our government and to our healthcare system because before the pandemic, they have been trying their best to deal with a lot of cases and patients that have been coming in on a regular basis for surgery, for treatment, for whatever have you. And we only have a few persons who are able to manage these sort of diseases. So,
Exactly,
can you imagine the problems and the challenges we're facing on a day-to-day basis? So you are pretty
exactly.
much here, Jessica, doing
I
your,
am. Yes, yes. I'm here doing radiation.
and you will,
Did my sixth
you,
one today.
how often do you go?
I go every day except the weekends and holidays. So
Okay.
every day.
Okay.
It takes
How
about
does
maybe
radiation make you feel?
for the past 2 days I wasn't doing too good, but I'll be okay. I'll be okay. Like Charmaine said, Jehovah Rapha, I depend on him
Yeah,
completely.
my
Completely.
experience with radiation, I don't know in terms of Nakia, but it
Mhm.
makes you very, very tired and exhausted. But it all depends on where the radiation is taking place. As in Jessica's case, it's happening on her brain cells. So, of course, that will
Correct.
impact her cognitive issues, her memory,
Yes.
um, her movement, your energy level, and all of these
Yes.
different issues that come into play. Nikita, you did radiation
Yes, ma'am.
and you went through it easy peasy, as you said.
Yes.
you know. And here it is, Jessica. And Jessica, you had radiation previous, didn't you?
No, I've never had radiation.
You
No.
didn't have to do it for the breast. You
No.
only went through
No.
chemo.
Correct. 6 rounds.
Okay. And so sometimes it's hard to say which one is worse. I mean,
Right.
because it all
Right. Because
depends on
chemo
the
for me was easy
individual.
peasy. Like Nakia said, chemo for me was a breeze. Chemo was a breeze.
But now you're being challenged with radiation because it's
A little.
definitely,
A
yeah.
little. A
Mhm.
little.
Okay. Okay. Um, what can we say to the women in Grand Bahama who are listening? Starting with you, Nakia.
What I will recommend for them, do your self examinations, get your mammogram, and do your annual. Because prevention is better than cure.
Okay. Let me ask you another question. What is life like for you now, 6 years later?
Well, 6 years later, it's been not too bad, as to say. It's been fairly good, I must say. God has been good to me through it all, despite it all. And now I just did my reconstruction the other in July.
Who did? Where was that done?
It was done at the
Here in Nassau.
Dr.
It
Right in
was done
Nassau,
here in
yes. At
Nassau.
Dr. Neil, yes.
Okay, okay. And what was
Uh-huh.
that process like
And
for you?
that it's coming along pretty good. But every day is just a little challenge in the breast that I had the surgery and the radiation.
Yeah.
That one is being a little stubborn. It's not moving the way how it should be.
Well, that will probably continue though, because the breast or the area that they radiate, the tissues and elasticity is
Mhm.
totally different, and so
Right.
that will always be a challenge for you.
Right.
Um, how is your tolerance level? How is your lifestyle different since you've been diagnosed?
Well, it's not too different. It's basically the same. I do basically the same things. Only thing, like I said, I just have to put in the time to exercise, and actually everything after that would be great
Now,
for me.
your daughter, you have one
Yes,
daughter, you said.
yes, ma'am.
How did she handle you being diagnosed?
At first, she handled it well, but
How
when
old
I
was she
had
at
to
that
do,
point?
she was 9.
She was 9. Okay.
But when I had to stay international to do the 12 rounds, because I had to do that every week, that devastated because she had to stay with her father. So that tore her apart a little bit. But after that, but we used to stay on the phone every day. Every day we used to talk. So that gave her a little comfort with her speaking with me every day. But now she does everything for me. Mommy, you don't have to do this. Mommy, you don't have to do this. So she does everything. She cooks, she cleans, she does everything.
How did she handle your hair portion?
Actually,
Did
she
you wear
liked
a cap? Did you wear a
I
cap at
did
any point?
after a few months because my aunt persuaded me to get one. But I loved rocking my ball head. I love that. I
Me
loved
too.
it.
Me too.
Mhm, I loved it.
Me
And
too.
I thought about it. I always say, even now that I have a low haircut, sometimes I just want to shave it off because I just looked at my photo today and I was like, should I? But
It, it, it,
I
it,
loved
it,
it.
it truly does bring a new leash on life. I mean,
Yes.
Yes.
if hair was important, then
Hmm.
it's like, oh, okay,
Hmm.
it's only here now because you're
Yes.
still here.
Hmm.
Now, Charmaine, your family, do you have children or are you married? Tell us about your family and how they handle your situation.
Sure. So I'm divorced. I have two sons, 23 and 17. And so when I went over for my biopsy, my 23-year-old, he came down from school and he was my driver, more or less. And so he was very supportive, and as mothers, we try and put on a good face. And he tried to do the same thing. And so I believe it affected him because he was right there with me. My younger son, well, I have a very strong support system in my mother, and he was, okay with it as well. I think the shock for them because I always had very long, thick, full hair, and
Right.
with my youngest son, when he would see my hair, he's like, "Mommy, that's your hair," because they always, don't ever cut your hair. And I made them a promise, I said I'll always keep my hair because I don't know, right? And the way it turned out, I'm like, your hair, your life. What is more important? Forget the hair. That that'll come and go. But very, very supportive family, and good friends as well, as we all know the importance of that.
Absolutely.
Do your boys talk about it now? Because, when I had a son too, and when I was going, I have a son, and when I was going through it, yeah, the things you said brought back the same sort of memories about your hair and that sort of thing. And you find that boys and men tend not to talk about illnesses and sicknesses, especially if it involves their loved ones. They process things differently than we do as females.
Yeah.
When you sit down and talk with them now, how are they responding to you in terms of where you at?
You're trying to pry. Nothing has changed as far as them being, I would say, like reclusive with it, with not sharing how they feel, because of they're my children, so I know how they are. I'm not overly concerned because I always have to be the one to initiate. Well,
Mhm.
what do you think, or how you feel? But to say, have them come and say, well, mommy, what's going on? Mm-mm. No, no, I would have to be the one just to keep them abreast and to really give them that confidence in knowing, listen, we're going to be fine. I'm going to be fine. And just giving them that energy even when I wasn't at my best, to say, listen, this is right now, but this is not where we're going to stay.
Right.
Jessica, let's ask a little bit about your husband and your children, how they're going through this personal aspect of it.
My husband, I couldn't ask for a better husband, Dr. Abby. He has been there from day one. Day one. He takes the time off from work. My kids, you know, they're adjusting. My 22-year-old is, I have a 22-year-old and a 16-year-old, and my 22-year-old takes it a bit harder than my baby does. But my husband, I wouldn't trade him for the world. I wouldn't trade my husband for the world. For the world. He holds my hand. I mean, I remember when I had to change, when I had to double mastectomy, he would drain the drains, and he just did
Wow.
everything. He did everything. I'll leave it as that. He did everything.
And you
Everything. So
know,
I'm very
the,
grateful. God placed me in a wonderful family. Wonderful family. My sister, my parents. So I have no complaints.
I need to log back on.
that is so
What it
important
is.
to hear because we hear of a lot of women who have to go through the journey alone.
Oh, I
Once
need
the
to.
husband finds out, they kind of
No.
walk away because they can't handle it.
There's no way.
And a lot of
There's
times,
no sockets.
men are
No
not
socket in there.
trained.
Uh-huh.
Men are not trained how to handle their feelings and their emotions.
Right.
And
He gets
a
down.
lot
He
of
gets
women
down
too.
sometimes. Now he does. He does. I mean, I can. It depends on how I'm feeling. Like for the past 2 days, I can see the concern in his eyes when I'm done with my radiation. But apart from that, that's my superhero.
You still on it? They can see it?
Um, we hear stories of women whose husbands walk away after a while because they can't handle it. And then, for us, we see the changes. Now, let me ask some of you, what about menopause? Did your treatments throw you into menopause? We'll start with you, Nikita.
Well, I was on menopause for 2 years.
Okay.
And I thought that was the end for me. But unfortunately, after the 2 years, it came back.
Wow.
And that broke my heart.
Did it start with chemotherapy or did it?
Yes. With the
Okay.
chemo, yes. Yes.
And you thought you were going to have a break after a while?
Yes,
Once
I
you finish.
did. I did. And actually, when I was doing my radiation and when I was attending clinic, Dr. Monroe told me, she said, you still can get pregnant. So I was like, but I don't have a period. She was like, that's nothing, but it's coming back. I was like, no. She's like, yes, it is. And sure it did.
Jeez.
And then it started again.
It started again.
What?
Now, Charmaine, what about you?
Man, I was celebrating because I'm only exactly 5 months now. I've not had a period, so I was celebrating. But now listening to you, Nikki, I'm like, what? I thought I was over that.
No, well, in most cases, we'll see you did not take chemotherapy. What about Herceptin? Did you have to do Herceptin?
No.
So you were not exposed to some of the drugs that would put you into menopause.
Early
but
menopause, yeah. 'Cause I did the
chemopause,
Herceptin as well.
chemotherapy throws her in menopause. Jessica, I'm sure you could attest to that.
Oh yes.
And so you have the hot sweats. You may
Yep.
have mood swings for some
Irritability,
persons.
mood swings. Yep.
Yes, your tolerance level, that's a key issue in there. I tell women, and you realize, hey,
Yep.
I ain't there no more.
Right.
That's a reality. Okay. So for women who are on these drugs, you find a lot of times menopause may start earlier than normal. Now, Charmaine, because you were BRCA positive, did they recommend any other treatment for you in terms of that gene at
Right
this point
now,
in time?
no, nothing until again. So obviously, because of my status, I go back. But I'm there. I'm back in Florida again at the end of this month until December. But I have to be there at least every 60 days.
Every 60 days, back and forth for a while. Because, yes, they have to really keep an eye on you
Yeah,
in terms of further development with
Yeah.
the other breast.
yeah.
Okay. And at this point in time, is reconstruction on your table for consideration at this point in time?
Oh, for me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my reconstruction is scheduled for the 25th of October. Week
Okay.
after next.
Okay. Week after next in
Yeah,
Florida.
I'm like, I want to be as whole as I can. And for me, this is so much more mental as far as me seeing myself whole again. And so I have been blessed where I'm able to move ahead and still do reconstruction surgery. And so I'm doing it.
Now, Nakia, for reconstructive procedure, did you get expanders or did you get tissue reconstruction? What was your process like?
No, I got the implants. I got silicones.
Or did you have an issue with having silicones?
No.
Okay.
No
Shamin,
issue.
what option are you seeking?
I'm having flap reconstruction. So transplant, as my plastic surgeon says, look at it as getting a free tummy tuck.
Yes.
That's right.
And it is a bit, I suppose, a more intrusive type of surgery. I do have an expander in right now, but again, based on my prognosis, it was not recommended that I get implants.
Sounds familiar. Sounds familiar. You know, as we kind of begin to bring the show to a wrap up, I don't see, and I want to say to the audience, if you have any questions out there for these ladies, please type in your questions so we can ask them, because this is a chance where you're able to communicate with them and to find out any information you may want to find out. But for you, Jessica, you're doing radiation. You're taking one day at a time.
Yes.
What do you look forward to in your own
Wholeness.
heart and mind?
Wellness, complete healing. Complete healing.
On whatever forms that take, right? Now, in terms
Sorry?
of your stress, whatever form that means by God.
Absolutely.
What about your stress level? Are you still able to work? What's happening with that in terms of your life?
I actually haven't worked since my diagnosis. So I haven't worked since 2018, but I'm not stressed. I wouldn't say that I'm stressed. I still can do everything that I did prior to being diagnosed. So with the pandemic and everything, I had to put a hold on going back to work for a minute, but I'll be back to work soon.
Okay. What about exercise? Are you able to do any of that?
I'm like Nakia. I don't exercise as I should. And my husband gets on me for that because I do know that I need at least, like Nakia said, 30 minutes a day.
Charmaine, you will be under the gun in another week or so. What are plans after that, once you come to that phase?
Well, in regard to me being employed, I could say if there is any positive with COVID, we were all working from home. And I have been favored to be in an organization even while I was going through everything. I am still able to work from home. So I'll be using vacation time for the surgery and as much or all of it. And then I go right back into working from home until I get back on island. So I'm again truly, truly favored and grateful that God has allowed me to be favored in this way, because I know, even like I keep on saying with insurance in Grand Bahama, those of us that have insurance represent about 30% of this population, which is not a good thing.
No. Nakia, are you involved in any groups for breast cancer? Are you able to share your story? Otherwise, do you have any opportunities apart from what has happened this evening to be able to talk about your story and to be able to assist with other women? Because in most cases, ladies, we lost Nakia. When these situations happen to us, even though we're going through it, it's not happening just for us. It's happening for the wider and greater community. So let me ask you, Shamin, are you involved with any organizations, or do you have any opportunities to talk about your situation and to share with others?
Sure. This beautiful lady who was also on this call, is funny how I got involved in Jessica's organization in the Pink. Jessica has a cousin who is also a survivor, and I was her support. As she was going through her treatments, unbeknownst to me, I had my own issues, and so got my feet wet. And hearing about Jessica's organization through supporting her cousin, who was my friend, and because of that, for me, advocacy is really, really huge. And so even as far as it's a short timeline, but involving my organization to do what we can to support in the Pink, the Cancer Society, obviously, and then my church, we're going to engage on a campaign. And we have a long term, and Jessica knows about this because we discussed this. One of the bigger goals, if we work together, and this is obviously going to happen through other organizations and public-private sector collaboration, is to have an oncology center here in the Northern Bahamas, because it is unconscionable to have persons having to travel to take chemotherapy. I mean, I have not had the experience of the severe. I mean, I've had some sickness with my drugs, but I just can't imagine having to go through and travel and everything else associated, having to get care to stay alive. And so the bigger picture for me is working towards that long-term goal of getting a center here for the residents of the North, not just Grand Bahama, the Northern Bahamas.
Question: what is Grand Bahama itself doing, though, to engage their people and their persons concerning breast cancer? Apart from this organization, I mean, the community at large. What about your representatives, maybe the churches, local government, the Port Authority? Mm-hmm. What are these people doing or saying concerning Grand Bahama?
Again, Jessica gave us a phenomenal opportunity within the Pink. We had an official courtesy call to the Office of the Prime Minister last week Friday, and we met with Minister Moxie, who too, she was directly affected with a mom with cancer. And so not only having these types of meetings, but strategizing a plan. This is how we're going to do it, because obviously the government can't do it on its own. I'm an employee of the Grand Bahama Port Authority. It takes all hands on deck between all of the major players and even the smaller players, because we all have a vested interest. When I started doing research, and because I like to find answers and problem solve, and when I found out that in my graduating class alone, I am the 7th woman who has been diagnosed with breast cancer. And I'm like,
wow.
This is unreal.
You have to say, wow.
Yeah, and this is only those of us that talk about it.
Right.
How could this be?
Are there any groups or institutions down there who are interested in doing any sort of research on Grand Bahama to find out why is the incidence increasing and so great? Charmaine, let me ask you. And then Jessica may want to chime in afterwards.
I don't know just yet, but I am finding I'm because I'm in it now, in the race and not supporting the race.
Right.
I'm digging, and I have a very curious mind to find out. My timeline has been short as far as my process and what I'm still dealing with as far as going back. And so I have plans to do whatever else I can and support the groups and the individuals that I know in finding out and really putting people and connecting people together to get solutions. And it happens with being involved and supporting each other
Being on the
as
ground, yeah, you have to be
as
on
a
the
group.
ground, yeah. And there's an organization, Nakia Watson, that she's actually trying to get off the ground to do research and just identify the logistics of where cancer is so prevalent in the Bahamas. So that's something that she's working on. We're digging, and hopefully sooner than later, we're going to be able to help more women.
Now, one of my biggest pet peeves with groups and support for breast cancer, before the pandemic, there were so many organizations and people out there who use October to raise monies for breast cancer.
Yep.
But believe me, less than 10% of that monies really go to further
Go to where
any
it
sort
needs
of
to go.
research or help to develop any sort of facility that can at least try to help or provide some sort of diagnostic or even treatment for persons with breast cancer.
Agreed.
The
And
pandemic
that's
came
part of why
and
we
shut a
started
lot
in
of that down.
that's
Sorry,
a
Jessica.
part of why we started in the pink as well, because we know a lot of women, they can't afford the screening. So last year, in the pink sent 20 women to have mammograms done. We're in the process now. We want to pay for airline tickets to bring them into Nassau to have their treatments, and so we're getting there slowly but surely. But that is what In the Pink is all about. That's where we started.
Now, the one thing though, when you start to have to individually try to help women to be able to travel to get treatment, that can begin to become such a challenge as time goes on because the numbers are increasing daily. However,
Agreed.
the concept of trying to get individuals to provide funding to help develop, as Shamin said, a facility that can at
Right.
least provide the healthcare. And then when you even think about that, you have to consider the healthcare professionals involved also.
Exactly.
How you
Exactly.
can get them on board because any sort of sickness is not a cheap process, depending on what it is. And healthcare, as I continue to say to people, is not free and it is not cheap. A lot of times we say, oh, the government should be doing this and oh, the government should be doing that. The government really can only do so much, but I think the government needs to develop their national healthcare plan to be able to facilitate care and treatment for some of these. But by the same token, we as a people need to contribute to it also. We can't think that we can pay $10 to go see the doctor free and think, oh, this
That's
is
right.
healthcare, because no, it does not work like that. And so as a country, we really have a lot of challenges that we have to face and deal with to be able to help our people. And of course, the health of the nation is the wealth of the nation. If the people aren't healthy, then what happens? Our nation is in trouble.
Yep.
Now, we have Nikita back on. Nikita, are you involved with any organizations? Do you have any opportunity apart from this evening to be able to talk about your experience, to walk along with anyone, to encourage support? What are you doing with your experience?
I'm a part of the Sister group, and every chance I get to speak with any young ladies, I do that to give them encouragement
Tell
and
the
let them
folks,
know that there is still hope.
let people know, because you're not listening, people are just not listening here, but let people know worldwide. What is Sister Sister all about?
Sister Sister is a cancer support group that help ladies with their podcasts, and they also raise funds, and they help and assist with any which way possible that they can. Whether if it be, like I said, with the podcast, with surgery, whatever it is, they help in any which way that they can.
And so we have to say a big shout out to Nurse McPhee
Actually,
and
yes.
Andrea Keating. These are women who've been leading that organization for a very long time. The pandemic has affected a lot of the activities, and so we're saying to the audience, listen, continue to support Sister Sister here in Nassau and the wider groups. And then we even think of the Cancer Society. We can't forget them, because that's the home away from home for a lot of Bahamian women, and a lot of people from Freeport could attest to that, because that's a home for them when they have nowhere to stay, when they have to be back and forth in Nassau, especially if you don't have family here, or you don't even have the means to be traveling back and forth, and also being able to find home location. Now, the group in Freeport, what is the name of that again? Your organization?
In the Pink, No One Fights Alone.
In the Pink. Tell us a bit about In the Pink, No One Fights Alone, Charmaine or Jessica.
Okay, In the Pink was birthed last August. Like I said, what we do is we assist with mammograms, we assist with airline tickets. We were in the process of doing podcast as well. So it's just to lend assistance to the sisters in the fight, or sisters that cannot afford for the mammograms or the ultrasounds, and so that's how we help.
And this organization just started a year ago, you said?
Yes. Yes.
Now, how active is the Cancer Society in Freeport, Grand Bahama?
I'm not even sure.
Charmaine, do you know?
To my knowledge, I have had a few conversations with the president, and that is because obviously with my organization, we have already made a donation to the Cancer Society. I think we can't underestimate really how the pandemic has really stopped a lot of
Right.
what would have normally happened. Let's be realistic with how these associations are run. It's all volunteer help. It's not a paid position. And so, and this is why if more people get involved, the burden is not so heavy on the people who really run in the race, right? And so, to my knowledge, I know October is just 1 month out of the 12 months that they are involved in some way, shape, or form in cancer or the fight against cancer. I've heard that there is something that is upcoming, but I've not, I can't tell you that I know exactly what it is.
Okay. Nakia, starting with you. Any final words?
And like I said earlier, do your mammogram, do your annual, do your breast self-examination. And if you feel any changes in your body, just go to the doctor and check it out. You never know.
Jessica?
It doesn't have to be cancer, but just to be on the safe side.
Jessica?
There's nothing to be afraid of. I know a lot of people would say that they're afraid of the mammograms and they're scared of the mammograms, but as Nakia alluded to, I would recommend that you get your screenings and everything done on a regular basis. It's important. It'll save your life.
Charmaine?
Yeah, we in the Bahamas, we know who really run the households for the most part, which are single mothers. If you are no good to yourself, you can't be any good to your children or your family. You have to prioritize your health, and we are selfless as women, as Bahamian mothers, sisters, wives, but you have to prioritize yourself, because long term, if you're not there, you're still no good to your children. prioritize your health.
And to our wider audience, there are several things I would like to say. This is Breast Cancer Month. There are very few activities going on to even highlight the month or to even raise funding. The Sister group is still in need. The group in Freeport, and even among the other family islands, I'm sure they have their groups, whether it's the Cancer Society or some organization. But we need everyone in our country to realize and understand how important it is for the women of our country to be able to help to fight this disease. Most households today are being run by women. Women are carrying a lot of the load. This is the first time we've seen this amount of women elected to parliament. It's going to be interesting to see what and how these women will use their platforms to support and encourage healthcare diseases that normally affect a lot of the women here in the Bahamas. And we know that breast cancer is one of the main ones. I have heard of so many persons who've been diagnosed in the last few weeks. And of course, it's a disease a lot of women do not like to talk about. The fear factor exists, but when you find out you have it, you must be proactive. As I listened to Nikki about not wanting to go, my situation, fear gripped me also, but I said, Al-Shamin, I need to know. I need to know. She waited a year. Fortunately, she's still here today. A lot of women don't have that opportunity for waiting for a year. But in the crisis we're in now, because you cannot even get the health care as quickly as you would like, many women may have to wait for months. But in the meantime, women and sisters, let's continue to talk amongst each other, support each other, and to do whatever we can to help and come alongside. We know of a lot of women who, as Jessica, battling. I remember the lady we brought on the show last year from Freeport, and she's still alive and she's fighting, but she definitely needs support, just like all of us. And for many of these women, they don't have the finances to be able to fight the disease. And cancer, as with any other major illness, can be expensive. You think of kidney disease, hypertension, diabetes, these are all diseases that can cause money long term. But with cancer, which is a life-threatening disease, the technology needed for diagnosis, the treatment process involved and everything. And for a woman, thinking of Shamin, she now has to consider reconstruction. So it's always this surgery and that surgery. And hopefully in her case, things will progress. In my case, I ended up with 4 surgeries in 1 year because I was BRCA positive. And so if I didn't have insurance, I don't know if I would have been able back then to have the sort of health care afforded to me at that point in time. And so I say to people, you need assurance because yes, God is ultimately the one who created us and he's in control of our lives. He knows our beginning and he knows our end. So that's the one you have to hold on to, as these ladies are doing. Secondly, if you are able to get insurance, get insurance. If you can afford to do it, get it. Because it will make a difference in your life depending on where you have to pursue treatment. Now, unfortunately, for a lot of our women in the country, don't have health insurance. And so they're dependent on the system, which is the public system in the country. And when it's that, you have to wait and you have to push and you have to pursue so many different avenues. But keep in mind also, we're in a pandemic. So the healthcare is in a crisis even as we speak. And a lot of women are not able to have access. And we're not just thinking breast cancer. There's so many other cancers people are being treated for in our country as we speak. And so breast cancer is just one of it. But for you women, continue to fight, continue to trust in God, continue your journey. Tomorrow, we're asking the people in our country to pink it up. When you go to work tomorrow, or if you're working from home, whatever you're doing, just put on something pink to highlight the month of breast cancer, because many of our women have succumbed, many of our women are fighting, and many of our women will be diagnosed as of tomorrow. We just don't know who. And let's continue to support each other because we need each other. And so, to you, lovely ladies, this evening, I want to say a special thank you for coming on and letting the world and even our country know what you have dealt with, as in Nikia's case, and in Charmaine and Jessica and Charmaine, who are still pretty much in the fight. We want to continue to just lift you all up and remember you. And most of them are from Freeport. So we have to say a big shout out to Grand Bahama, because Grand Bahama is in the trenches. I mean, these women are fighting. I know of several women who've had to go to Cuba, and had success from Cuba. But not all of them are able to travel to Cuba. And traveling now, it's a challenge. So we really have to remember Grand Bahama in particular, and our other family islands. It's high in Andros, it's high in Eleuthera, and so we need to be able to keep this in the forefront, breast cancer, because it is affecting the lives of our Bahamian women. So thank you, ladies. I want to say thank you for our listening audience, and I have to always say thank you to my husband, who is the one behind doing all the administrative work for me, and along with my son. Appreciate them both, Theodore and Theo. Thank you, thank you. And to Palmdale Vision Center, my staff in particular. But the program is brought to you by Palmdale Vision Center, and you can always send it out to your friends and colleagues so that they will be able to hear the story of the plight of women in our country. And Bahamas, let us continue to go pink. We will continue this fight. So until next week will be our last show, and we will have a very exciting lady on who is going to talk about her journey. So I want you all to listen up next week for our final episode of Breast Cancer Awareness on Share Your Story. And so to the Bahamas and the rest of the wider community, I want to say good evening and thank you. Ladies, don't check out yet. We'll just log off and then we'll have a brief summary. So good evening all.
Good evening.